Well, Florida's offense has talent, but they haven't been able to put it together. That defense, though, physical up front, but still searching for consistency. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Mississippi State, your daily podcast on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. My name is Jaron Spor. I'm a national college football writer at Athlon Sports. That's Landon McBride. We've got a preview show for you today. We're going to break down the offense and defense for the Florida Gators and give our game predictions in our Next Up in Starkville segment. First, let's start with the offense for Florida. Obviously led by DJ Lagway. He's a very, very talented quarterback. Hasn't been able to put it all together this year. The completion percentage isn't bad, 66.5%. Yards aren't great, 1,233. 9 touchdowns, also has 7 interceptions. Now, 5 of those came in one game, so against the LSU Tigers. He's been a little better as of late, but still, they're struggling offensively. They can't get any consistency going. They can't. They don't have a great offensive line. Dallas Wilson is a great pass catcher, but outside of him, they don't have much out there. But his last 2 games, he's at least thrown for 298 yards against Texas. He threw for 245 against Texas A&M, so 543. 2 touchdowns in both games. So he's done better recently, at least.
Yeah, he has done better. And you mentioned Dallas Wilson, and when he kind of had his first game against Texas, it looked like maybe he was kind of the missing piece. That was the explosive playmaker, but they kind of went back to the same offense against A&M. Now, some of that could be A&M's defensive game plan could have just really been great that game, and that's a byproduct of that. But yeah, like to have so much talent and be this inconsistent is – I mean, it's not unheard of. I mean, it happens to one team at least every year where you just look at their roster and how is this the outcome?
Right.
But I don't know what it is because they're not running the ball very well, and that might be kind of really – I mean, Jaden Baugh is good, 4.9 yards a carry, but only 460 yards on the year, and no one else is even over 100 yards. So, I mean, that could be – but that goes back to what you mentioned about the offensive line not being
That's who you have to stop.
It's just such a weird
and that's who you have to stop.
Yeah. That really is what you have to do. You just have to load the box and make – as crazy it is, make Lagway and these receivers beat you, which they can. But, but they haven't proven they can do it consistently yet.
Yeah, and Baugh is like we said, a really solid running back. I think he'd have more yards per carry if they were leading, or more yards in the game if they were leading more often. He could rely on him to kind of run the game, run the ball, and run the clock out. But they haven't been able to do that this year. But he is very solid. You're gonna have to be able to stop him. Offensive line, like you said, and I mentioned that they just haven't been good. And I think they caught Texas kind of off guard by some of the things they did offensively. I don't think they do a lot of great things schematically. I don't think Billy Napier is a great play caller. Brandon Olson even said that on Wednesday's show that he should give up play calling. I fully support that if I was a Gator fan. So they just aren't doing a lot of good things offensively until that Texas game. But the Texas game is kind of the outlier because outside of the Texas game, they have not scored over 17 points against an FBS opponent this season. They scored obviously 55 in the opener, but that was to an FCS opponent. Then they scored 16 against South Florida, 10 against LSU, 7 against Miami. They had the 17 against A&M. But then the 29 against Texas, a very good Texas defense, is the one that kind of stands out. And it looked like, okay, maybe they have found some things, but then they go back to what they were against earlier in the season when they played A&M. And so that makes you think, okay, that was probably a fluke that just happened. But yeah, you mentioned Dallas Wilson. He was obviously incredible in the game against Texas. Didn't have as good of a game against Texas A&M. 3 catches, 20 yards. Did have a touchdown. A lot of his plays against Texas was kind of just him manhandling people, or there was the one big touchdown where the guy fell down, the corner fell down, and he was just wide open. But he's a freshman, so you kind of expect him to be up and down. Other guy to watch, Vernal Brown the third, was kind of his favorite target, Lagway's favorite target, pretty much all year, until Wilson kind of came into the fold. But he has 27 catches, 368 yards. Doesn't have a touchdown, but he's 5'11", 172, just kind of your perfect get open type of player. So that would be the one to kind of look out for at wide receiver. But as you mentioned, running back, Jaden Ball and like, I mean, that's it. That's all it is.
Yeah, and you mentioned Napier's lack of creative schemes and play calling. I have a buddy who's a Florida fan, and we were just talking about football the other week, and he said he's the worst. Napier is the worst play caller he's ever seen. Said he runs 7th grade football route concepts. And this guy is a high school football coach, so I think he's probably familiar with some 7th grade route
Right.
concepts.
Right.
So it is they're down bad with their play calling there. But yeah, I don't know what, because like this is such a talented team, they just haven't put together. So it's hard to say this is what you do to stop them. So far, they've kind of stopped themselves, whether that's through Lagway's 5 interceptions in a game, or Napier's play calling, or the offensive line struggling to gel even with all that talent. So it's hard to say this is what you have to do to beat them, because it's kind of like just don't make massive mistakes and they might implode and beat themselves.
Yeah, and that was something Brandon Olson talked about. It's just been kind of the thing that with Florida all year is waiting to let them beat themselves. I mean, and they've done it over and over and over and over again. It's just crazy because of all the talent. Now, I still think Lagway is hurt and that shoulder is messed up, and he's playing through it, and that's why he hasn't looked like the player that a lot of people thought. He's out there, so I get it. But Florida, with all that talent, should never be 100th in total offense. They're 100, averaging 348 yards a game, and then with Lagway and those and the weapons that he does have around him, 71st in passing offense at 227 yards per game. Again, this is Florida we're talking about. They shouldn't be down this way. And then the rushing attack is 108th. I mean, and like I said, and we talked about, 120.8 is bad for a team, but Jaden Ball is getting like 90 of that. I mean, or 70, he's in 77 of that. I mean, so he's getting like way over half your rushing yards, and that shouldn't happen unless the guy's averaging 110 and you're averaging 200. Like, if that was the case, then it's a good situation. But when you're averaging 120 and 77 is coming from one guy, that makes you extremely limited as well. And again, I think a lot of it goes back to the offensive line. A lot of it goes back to the injuries. If you've seen the injury report, it is almost like reading a book. It is very, very long, and it's been that way all season. And that was why before the year I said Florida was going to be this year's Oklahoma, because they had a lot of expectations in the offseason, but were just every time you read something, it was this player's out, this player's out, this player's out. Dallas Wilson missed a ton of games until the Texas game, but it was always another player, one after another, that was going to be out. And it was like, man, this just feels like it's going to be like Oklahoma last year where they just can't get healthy.
Yeah, they're dealing with so many injuries, and no team with the amount of talent they have that will be playing on Sundays in a couple years. So they have a ton of guys that are in NFL rosters, and they just aren't putting it together. And some of that's coaching, some of that's just injuries and bad luck. But it's a very strange team, because they will have some plays that you're like, that's the team that should be on the field. And then for the next quarter, it is like, what am I watching?
Right.
It is a crazy football team to watch right now.
So not just to go all Florida here, what do you like about Mississippi State in this matchup? I think the things that I like is, first off, their defensive line, Mississippi State's defensive line, hasn't been great about getting sacks, getting tackles for losses. Obviously, Malick Sylla, we talked about, has been great about getting pressure, but hasn't got the sacks and stuff. The one thing that worries me when Mississippi State plays different teams is, okay, if that offensive line is good, it's going to be a long day up front, which is now going to put more pressure on the coverage. Florida's offensive line is not good. And so that isn't going against Mississippi State's weakness. So I think they're going to have a lot of success, not talking about the defensive line, just talking about the defense in general, because I think the defensive line will have some wins where they haven't been able to really get many wins. And that's going to help the secondary even more. And the secondary has been stout all year.
Yeah, I think the front seven is going to have a very good day because we mentioned, like you mentioned, Malick Sylla. We've seen Brandon Jennings creating some havoc in the backfield with blowing up some plays. Dinkins has been very solid against the run and creating a little that push in the middle. When you have an inconsistent offensive line and a team that isn't running the ball well, that leads to you being able to kind of tee off a little bit more on the quarterback. Like, they're going to pass a little bit more, so maybe you don't have to load up in the middle to stop the run as much. And like the secondary's been good. Kelly Jones has been very, very good this year. Put him on one of those two receivers and then just kind of figure out how to stop the other one. And you have a decent game plan.
Yeah, I think the defense can have a lot of success in this one. All right, what about Florida's defense? What do they present, and how will Mississippi State's offense react to it? We'll talk about that coming up next. Well, it's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. Obviously, Mississippi State was out, so I'm going to go with my MVP for the midway point of the season. So for Mississippi State, I'm going with Jaron Manning. If you listen to Monday's episode, I talked about that. He's delivered in a big way all season long. The Old Dominion transfer, 40 tackles, leads the team at the safety position, also has an interception. He also made several really good defensive plays in the Tennessee game. I thought he looked really good against Texas A&M as well. I just think he's had a really great under-the-radar type season that people aren't really taking notice, but they need to start taking notice because he's playing great because he's come through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week and really paying attention, he's on a streak. His performances have not been a fluke. He's been playing great football this year. So just like Jaron Manning delivered for Mississippi State, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. And when the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The Part Finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their Trade Master perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Florida's defense has actually been pretty solid this year. It's not been a great unit, but it's been overall a decent unit. They hadn't allowed over 30 points this year until Texas A&M just did it, where they scored 34. Held South Florida to 18, and South Florida has a really good offense. LSU to 20. Miami to 26, Texas to 21, and then obviously the 34, like I mentioned, A&M scored. So overall, they've been a pretty good unit this year.
Yeah, they have been pretty good, and I think that comes with whether it's individual players or scheme getting to the quarterback. Because they have, what is it, like about 10 sacks, I think, on the year? Or maybe.
Yes, and that's the thing. 6 of them have come in one game. That was against Texas. And so outside of the Texas game, they haven't really gotten after the quarterback at all. They have 9 sacks on the year.
9 sacks, but they have 25 quarterback hits. Yes. So they're getting back there. They're just not getting home that often.
Right.
Which lets you know they are getting in the backfield. They're making people, getting pressure, hurrying people up. So even if it's not getting home, that is affecting plays. But sack numbers aren't great, but that is something that jumped out to me, was just the number of quarterback hits that they have on this team.
Yeah, and a lot of that came against Texas too. I mean, Texas was by far their best game they've put together, and they have literally 3 sacks in the 5 other games
Mhm.
outside of Texas. So they're not getting home a lot. And that's, if you're a Mississippi State fan, this goes also, I just talked about it on the offensive preview. The weakness has been the offensive line and pass blocking, and that's not been Florida's strength this year. They have not been good. Now, they did great against Texas, and Texas offensive line isn't great either, but that's not been their strength. They haven't been able to get after the passer in terms of getting him to the ground
Right.
all season long. And, they have a bunch of injuries on defense. Caleb Banks hasn't played this year. Probably Brandon Olson isn't sure he'll play this season.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see on that. But because he's a star defensive lineman, and that would change everything for them, and he hasn't been there. But that's where I think Mississippi State's advantage is, and that's why I like Mississippi State's chances a lot in this game, is because the two biggest weaknesses on the team, on offense and defense, Florida doesn't take advantage of it. Not so far this year, other than Texas. That's the only game.
It's true. And Texas's offensive line has all kinds of questions, which we've seen. Right. So that could be some of it. And, sometimes teams just get hot. But as long as – so what they're getting quarterback hits but not getting sacks tells me is they're about a step or half a step away from getting a sack. So if Shapen does not keep doing what he's been doing and holding on the ball way too long – they'll be all right. Now, if he keeps holding on to the ball too long, they might have another 5-sack day because they are clearly beating people. They're just not getting home. So Shapen's going to have to get the ball out and let these fast wide receivers take advantage and, take advantage of them and get some space, because that's an area you can attack. Yes, this team also has a lot of pass breakups, but I mean, that happens when you're getting thrown on, like they're getting thrown on. So that's, again, kind of just a product of the situations they found themselves in.
And kind of going back to what you said about getting the ball out quickly, and it kind of goes back to our conversation on Wednesday's show about sacks being a quarterback stat.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this stat, and it's pretty crazy. So obviously Manning got hit a bunch. He got pressured a bunch against Florida. He got sacked 6 times. Like, the offensive line was in disarray. Within the next week, they're playing Oklahoma, number 1 defense in the country, number 1 in pressure rate, and number 1 in like sacks and all that. Great defense line, maybe the best in the country. And he only gets sacked twice. But actually, he was pressured on 50% of his passes in that game against Oklahoma, which was more than the Florida game. But he only got sacked twice compared to 6. Why? Because he got the ball out quicker. And that's exactly what Shapen can do. And that's what he needs to do. And also part of that was the game plan Sark called. So the offensive coordinator, which is Levy, is going to have to do that, because Sark called and I saw this, and it was part of that stat too, 15% of the time all season long they called screens. Against Oklahoma, they called it 25% of the time. So they went up on that. And just calling a couple screens early now makes a defensive line hesitant. Okay, do I need to start watching this more? And especially like if you watch that Oklahoma and Texas game, Texas hit a screen the first play of the game. It went for 15 yards. Now, they didn't do anything the rest of the first half, but that first play set the tone for Oklahoma's defensive line that, okay, we got to start watching this. We can't just fire off and go. And that's exactly what Levy and Shapen have to do in this one, in my opinion. They got to do some things that are against their tendencies, and tendency breakers is what we call them, and just throw the defense off just a little bit.
Yeah, and Levy having the extra week to kind of scheme up all of that, I think, is an advantage, because he didn't have to prepare for anyone last week. He's been making this game plan for 2 weeks, essentially. And so he's able to find a way to work in those screens, even wide receiver screens, just to get it out of his hand quick. And running the ball is another, like some draw plays up the middle, run the ball well. That'll slow down the pass rush. And hope, it's really just, it sounds like a broken record, just so many of these plays, if Shapen would have gotten rid of the ball, like, who knows what could have happened the last couple of weeks, because that's what it came down to. Even some design QB runs. I know he's not Kamario Taylor back there. He's not going to break the 80-yard run, but he can get you 10, 15 yards on a design run. It might not be a bad idea to get him on the move a lot too, at least early.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we'll have our game picks. That's coming up next.
What do you get when you have a bald eagle standing on top of a silverback gorilla riding a T-Rex? Confidence. Pure confidence. If you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. That's exactly where Rugiet Go Long comes in. This isn't just another ED pill, it's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines two doctor trusted medications in one dual action formula so you can get hard and go the distance. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. And the process is simple: connect with a board certified doctor 100% online. And if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. If prescribed, your treatment ships, it will get to your door discreetly. And ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head over to rugiet.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Make sure to use our code so they know we sent you. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You know, I love using FanDuel. I've mentioned this many times. The in-game bets with those live lines. If you're watching a game, someone's getting hot, just jump in on that live line. It makes watching the game so much more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. And whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started.
Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Landon, how's the game going to shape out?
I think this is going to be a close one, but I think in the end, Mississippi State does pull it out. I'm going to say 27-24.
I like that. In Wednesday's podcast with Brandon Olson, I believe I went with 24-21 Mississippi State. If I didn't, I went 27-24. So it was one of the two. Either way, I had Mississippi State winning by 3, and either way, I'm sticking with the 3-point win. I think it was 24-21. I'm going to go with that because unless Florida can show me that offense against Texas shows back up, I just can't buy into it. And as I mentioned in the offensive preview, as I mentioned in the defensive preview, the things that Mississippi State struggles with, Florida also struggles with. They're not great at those things. And the teams like Tennessee and Texas A&M were really good at the things that Mississippi State struggled with. And Mississippi State still should have beat Tennessee. Like, that's the crazy thing about it. So I just think in this game, I unless Florida just shows, again, if they show that Texas team, because that Texas team is a team that would take advantage of the issues that Mississippi State has. That team that showed up against Texas, but that team has showed up once in 6 games, and I just until I see it, I don't believe it. Now, Fluff possibly being out, that hurts the case as well.
Right.
But with Lebby having a week to kind of develop some things and figure some things out, scheme up a whole game plan without him, I think getting Booth out in the passing game and stuff like that's going to really help them in the long run.
Yeah, that Texas game is the Florida team that was ranked, top 15, top 20, whatever they were to start the year. The rest of the time, who knows what that team is. And yeah, it's really a team that Mississippi State can take advantage of and can beat in certain areas, especially along the defensive front versus Florida's offensive line, which that defensive front 7 for Mississippi State has been very good this year. So, I expect that to continue and kind of take advantage of this lack of running game and kind of confusion that this offense seems to have all the time.
Yeah, take care of the lack of running game. Really have to limit Ball. Again, I think he's a really good running back that his numbers don't.
Good. It's just not.
Yeah, it doesn't show it as much because, for one, they can't get leads to let him run out the clock, but also the offensive line has been great because, and with them not being great, he's still averaging almost 5 yards a carry. So he's doing like having a really good season. So you have to be able to contain him for sure. But I think Mississippi State can pull this one off. And then now you're looking at a 5-2 start, and would be a great start. And at already 4-2, getting 4 wins, doubling your win from last year is a really good, successful season. 5 and then getting possibly bowl eligible to 6 would be incredible with this team. But all right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy breaks down the best conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Well, my name is Jaron. Check out my work over at Athlon Sports. That's Landon. Follow us, Locked On Mississippi State. We're on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. We post daily videos Monday through Friday, so check those out as well. We also will have our post-game and pregame video that we'll post on all of our social media platforms like we do every game day, so make sure to stick around for that. And until next time, Hail State.
Hail State.